Previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
I'm so confused. Is this the 404?
And then I said, if you don't let go of my shoelace, I'm going to stab you in the eye.
I didn't know we recorded in the middle of the day. That's why I thought it was weird.
Actually, previously on Podcast Without Pretense, did it even go up? I haven't looked.
Yes, actually, I believe it's called the Unexpected Episode. We did record an episode kind of off the cuff last week, audio only. It went up yesterday at gfqnetwork.com, and it's about 20 minutes of us talking about Maximum Conviction. So if you're like, oh my God, I want to watch the video version of that, you're fucked. I'm sorry.
It took about 6 minutes for Eric to finally be convinced that we were actually recording an episode. And not just talking about recording an episode.
We should introduce ourselves. I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Eric Sandine.
I'm Jonathan Strickland.
And together we forget to introduce ourselves.
Yeah, that's kind of our shtick.
Yeah, so we have an audio episode that's available. Go ahead.
That's awesome. And it was actually kind of fun talking about Maximum Conviction. I would argue, I mean, it's a super short episode and we typically go about an hour. So for it to be like a 17-minute episode is really not typical of us. However, I think Maximum Conviction warranted that very brief discussion.
So we're not going to rehash that now. It's available at gfqnetwork.com. It was right after a 404 appearance by these two gentlemen. Jeff Bacalar, who's my co-host, he was like all busy, like taking care of a baby. He has, like,
that'll teach him for having a baby.
He was all like on leave and whatever. So these two guys decided to actually join me on that episode. So if you want to hear us like completely go off the rails about Fuller House on Netflix, which we did. I almost wanted to cut out the first 20 minutes of the show and just like put that out because the Fuller House discussion is amazing. You should check that out, the 404. Not that I need to promote the 404 on this show because I'm pretty sure the audience is the other way around. But anyway.
Yeah. It's a Venn diagram where our circle for Podcast Without Pretense is about 1/25th the size of the encompassing circle of the 404.
Yeah,
I like our numbers if it's 1/25th. Oh, you just mean yeah.
It's probably that's probably like pretty generous. It's like if I retweeted Tom Merritt, it's like, okay, he's got 4 times the followers and the overlap's entire. So pointless.
Now, one thing we should point out is that the lesson for all you podcasters out there is that if you have a baby, we will take over your show.
Yeah, I guess so. Speaking of babies, let's talk about this week's movie, which reminded me of Three Extremes.
All right.
That's the worst segue ever.
I know. And let's
Speaking of babies, let's talk about VHS Viral.
Hey, wait a second. Now, I did talk about Three Extremes. If you haven't watched Three Extremes, watch it. It's freaking awesome. It's a horror anthology movie, and VHS Viral is very similar in that kind of format. That's the word I was looking for. Jonathan, you picked it. So can we find out why the hell you picked this movie? Is it just because some of it's based in Atlanta?
Yeah, there had to be some.
It's not because it's based in Atlanta. You know Dante, the magician?
Yes. Yeah.
I was in a show with him back in 2001. He's a friend of mine. That's Justin Welburn. And I have acted on stage with Justin on numerous occasions. So that's why I wanted to do the movie, because it had someone I knew in it.
Yeah, that's what I told Liz during the movie, and she's like, "Is he trying to promote like his friends? Is that what he's doing?" And I'm like, because I'm like, it's Atlanta. Maybe there's something. There's a link there.
Come on,
because yet again we have so much weight promoting his friends on PWP.
I was about to say, like, I'm hoping Justin doesn't listen to this show because I'm going to be I'm going to be very honest about my opinion of this film.
Okay, so we usually try to watch him. Let's tell. I'm going to do this spiel for some reason because I feel like it. If you guys don't mind. Sure. So what we do on this program, it's not supposed to really have a format, but somehow we've kind of settled into this rut or a groove, if you want to call it. We watch movies.
You're really selling it, Ayaz.
We are so hyper connected that we find it very difficult to concentrate on movies and activities. We normally end up with a second screen. So for some reason on this show, we watch movies either on Netflix or some other service usually on Netflix, and we see how long we can pay 100% attention to it. And if we go to a second screen, we write down the time we got to the second screen, or there's a distraction of some kind. So if you're like making quips about the movie, that means that you're not paying 100% attention. If you got another person in the room talking to them, if you have alcohol, because Jonathan cannot drink due to, I think it's actually like physical rejection of alcohol because he's allergic.
Yes.
That's a problem. It's not like he's like, he doesn't want it. Who knows? Maybe he wants alcohol. I have no idea. That's beside the point. Anyway, so we write down how long we've watched the movie without a second screen or distraction. There's no winner. There's no loser in this, because if you watch a movie usually long enough, you're like, why the fuck did I do that? And if you choose to, you don't even have to finish the movie. That's happened to me a number of times. I think I've missed 2 endings to movies or 3. And for this movie, I managed to go 7 minutes and 15 seconds before going to a second screen. And here's why. I really want to. This is the dumbest reason ever. My iPhone and my iPad, which were both on my coffee table, both lit up at the same time. And I kind of recognized the shape of the letters right away. And it was an email from Jonathan Strickland saying, I'm on for tonight's show. And I was like, fuck. I read the email in the notification screen. So now I done fucked up. 7:15 was for me. How about you, Eric?
It was about 24 minutes, I think. Somewhere, yeah, it was like 24 minutes.
For me, it was about 17 minutes, and the reason why I paused was that my dog needed to go outside. So I paused the movie, took the dog out, came back in, and thought, well, maybe I can count this as still paying 100% attention if I just start it back up. And you know, I'll say that I paused it, but then I'll point out that I then continued watching without any distractions because I felt it could go longer. And then I decided it wasn't worth it. So 17 minutes is about where I stopped.
When was the decided it didn't worth it? Like, when was that, Mark?
It was before I had hit play again. It was when the movie was still at pause. It was still paused at 17 minutes, and I was like, all right. And I sat down and I looked at the screen that was paused, and I thought, yeah, I don't care. And got my computer out and then pushed play.
So who wants to explain the plot of this movie or plots of this movie?
Have you guys seen, before we start that, have you guys seen either of the other 2 VHS movies?
I never finished the first one. I kind of started the first one and then I gave up after a little bit.
The second one is actually the strongest of the 3, I would say. And VHS, like you were saying, Ayaz, it's a horror anthology film. So it's kind of like classic horror anthology films, like the Twilight Zone movie or the Creep Show films. It's like that, where you have multiple short segments, and then there's always a wraparound plot that is running through between the various segments. So in the first one, as I recall, it was a group of folks who were they were ransacking a house and come across all these videotapes. And so the wraparound was the guys who had gone into the house, and the individual stories were the videotapes that were being played one after the other. This one didn't have really it didn't really incorporate the interstitial stuff, like the actual full stories, in the wraparound in that way, or at least not in a way that was really coherent. But you have a wraparound story. The wraparound story is that there's this ice cream truck that's on a high-speed chase that sometimes has cops chasing the truck and sometimes doesn't. And it's essentially just taking the same route over and over again. And there's this guy who is obsessed with filming his girlfriend all the time, even when she gets irritated, and she wants to have a serious discussion about the relationship, and he's still being kind of a dick. And then the car chase goes by, and he thinks, oh, here's my chance to shoot a viral video, and then somehow everything will be cool, because apparently if you shoot a viral video, your life is made from that point forward. So that's the wraparound. Then you have the 3 individual stories, the first one being about a stage magician named Dante, who is a terrible magician, but then comes into possession of a truly magic cloak that requires human sacrifice for it to continue working. Then you have a one that's all in Spanish. And did you guys have captions, or did you have to turn them on?
I had to turn them on.
Yeah, see,
Well,
so
you were
Ayaz,
watching
you
it with
always
the cat.
watch it with captions.
Yeah.
I always want to catch
Yeah.
Well, see,
Alright,
and the funny thing about it is I got like a solid 8 or 9 minutes into that scene, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I know enough Spanish to understand what's going on right now. And then I'm like, wait, they're not. They're still speaking Spanish.
Yeah, no, I was in the same boat, Eric. I was like, oh, I'll just maybe it's meant to be watched this way.
Right.
And then ultimately I said, well, let me see what happens if I turn on closed captions. And then you got the English translation because otherwise, there were no subtitles.
Nothing.
So
It was
no forced
just in
captions
Spanish.
there. And
Yeah.
what I've noticed is that the Spanish translations were a little bit loose because
Yeah.
like there's a line like
Yeah.
the line is actually this is my woman. And then the line reads on the caption, "This is my wife." And Liz took umbrage to this. She's like, "Wait, what did you just? You don't say it that way." I'm like, "No, you know people say that. Like, this is my woman. Like maybe it's a different kind of thing."
Yeah, like when your woman gets offended about you referring to her as your woman and she leaves you, you say, "My woman done left me." I mean, we all been there.
That's
So
the basis of every country song ever.
the third of the three pieces, there was a fourth one that was cut out before the film came out, so we won't talk about that because I don't think either of you sought it out to go watch it, and I didn't. But the third one is a bunch of skateboarders who are trying to make a skateboarding video, and they end up going to Tijuana, where apparently there are blood cults just running rampant. Like, forget the drugs and the cartels and that sort of thing. Blood cults are really the problem in Mexico right now, guys. And so the skateboarders come into contact with them and then try to escape. And so those are your four basic stories, the wraparound and the three main ones. And I didn't take notes on this one. I will say a couple of things. I felt that out of the three, the middle section was the strongest. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was stronger than the other two, the first one and the third one. The first one being the magician one and the third one being the skateboarder one. I thought that the magician one felt like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Or maybe, did you guys ever watch the show Friday the 13th, the series?
No, I've never watched that one.
I think so.
So Friday the 13th, the series had nothing to do with the movie series of Friday the 13th. It was about a curiosity shop where you have like this old guy and a couple of young adults who track down magical artifacts and then bring them back to the shop to store them safely because all the magical artifacts are evil in some way. So what happens is they'll hear a story about somebody demonstrating a particularly unusual ability and they start to suspect that perhaps one of these artifacts is the cause of it. They would go out, try to get the artifact away from the person so that no one else would get hurt and take it back to the shop to hold it. So this cloak episode thing could have easily fit in with one of those episodes. I mean, it was exactly like something you would have seen in the television show, with the exception that there was obviously more cursing and the violence was probably a little more graphic than you would on TV, but otherwise it was unremarkable in that respect. What did you guys think of it, of the Dante's segment?
Well, I mean, it wasn't bad because it's of the in the wraparounds we have a lot of extra footage, and in the Dante stuff, actually no, this is the issue. The Dante part actually has way more extra footage from not surveillance cameras and regular cameras, and that one seemed to be a little out of place compared to the rest of it. Because I know Dante, he's got this cloak and he needs human sacrifices, and for some reason he finds the need to record them because
that's particularly odd.
Yeah.
That's what you do. I could see when he has the cloak. It's from Harry Houdini. That's the idea. And Houdini had to give it up, and so Dante gets the cloak, and he's like practicing in the garage as you do. He puts on the cloak. He's like pulling a rabbit from the background to the foreground through his cloak. You actually see a little warping happening by where the rabbit is. So you're getting the idea that, look, flat out, in this world, there's magic. All right? There's no bullshit about this. This is flat out magic. There's no explanation. He's not like he's really crafty. He's actually thought of as a shitty magician. But there was a decided lack of somebody else recording this because there's this huge fight between Scarlett and Dante, and Scarlett's one of the assistants, and
Right.
It's only shot by a third-party point of view that is not like a character or anything. Dante's shooting himself, and Scarlett shoots herself at different times. And in the other movies, the other sections of the movie, there's a lot of, well, the main character's holding a camera and we're seeing their point of view a lot. That doesn't really happen in this particular one. So it seems like very much like a Twilight Zone episode because the way it's shot is very third person.
Yeah.
Found footage films in general suffer this problem where you will get to a segment where you have to do one of two things. You have to ditch the found footage format so that you can shoot a segment of your story that makes sense, or you keep the found footage format and you just hope that no one pays attention to the fact that that moment doesn't make sense anymore because it's a moment where no one would keep a camera rolling or have the sense to point it at what's going on or have the ability to point it at what's going on. The only argument I can make, and it's a dumb one, the Dante section in particular is different from the others in that it's being done almost like it's a documentary after the fact. So it even has talking heads. So you have that interspersed with the footage that was supposedly found in Dante's possession because he had this weird compulsion about recording his sacrifices, like Ayaz was saying. The only thing that makes sense within the context of the episode, and even this is an apologist approach, is that Dante is using magic to hold the camera on the action. That's literally the only way you could explain it other than saying, okay, it's a movie now.
Yeah, I could believe that. But the footage suffers from, what's the word? It doesn't seem to have as many weird things happening to the footage, I guess. And it's shot pretty well. I mean, there are times where it's definitely on the floor and it's shooting up in a very bizarre way. So you know what? Considering Dante's affection for recording what's happening, or maybe the cloak's affection for recording shit, maybe that's what's been going on this whole time. But we didn't get a lot of idea that it was moving around and like, because it seemed like we actually had some hard cuts. So if we're having hard cuts, we're talking about like, how many cameras does the magic cloak have? Like 5, 6? Because that's pretty fucking awesome. I would notice that as Scarlet. Like, hey, look, there are 5 cameras around.
Yeah, it like I said, it only works if you take the apologist approach because the film does not address this. The film is taking the approach of, gosh, I hope no one notices that for this segment we have kind of abandoned the found footage, method, and that of course doesn't make any sense within the context of the overall segment because again it's being done like it's a documentary after the fact. So ultimately there are too many problems even from just a conceptual level beyond the fact that this is a story that has been told a billion times in other ways, like the story of the cursed item that gives a person power and they use it to achieve fame, even though it means continually having to hurt or kill people in order to maintain that fame. That's a story that's ancient. So it didn't bring anything new to the table. It did not do it in an innovative way. And ultimately the conceptual execution was faulty.
It's it reminded me because somebody said it in the chat, and it's what I was thinking of when you brought up the Friday the 13th series. It was literally every episode of Warehouse 13. If you've watched that show, like every single one of them,
without the humor,
right? Without the humor and without somebody actually like securing the item.
The only humor in this is. You only get it from the bits where people are being interviewed after they have left one of Dante's amazing performances. Funny. Yeah, where like the couple that says, we went to a show in New York and now we're in LA. I should be pissed, but how the hell did he do that? Which is kind of funny. And I will shout out to Justin, my buddy Justin. I thought he did a fine job as Dante. I just don't think he had enough to work with for it to be anything spectacular.
So I want to talk a little bit about. I've got some notes here. I'm not gonna do the long spiel with notes today. I'm gonna just kind of like throw some of this stuff in because I enjoyed part of the Dante story because you got Scarlett. She's an assistant. She hands in the tapes to the police, the Atlanta police. The tapes are full VHS style tapes. They're like gigantic. And I'm like, wait a second. Why is the footage in HD? I'm like, do they make HD VHS? I'm like, they make HD DV. Took me a while to remember that part because I used to shoot on HD DV. And I'm like. What the hell kind of camera does he have? So apart from the technical side, she gives these tapes over to the cops. She's in questioning and they're recording what's going on. And so Scarlett Scarlet is telling the cop it's magic. The cop's like, there's no such thing as magic. So then she gets sucked from the chair through the cloak to where Dante is, and the cops are onto Dante. So I've got this here. It says, so the cloak gives him control of the Force, some kind of telekinesis. Scarlet is sucked out of her chair through the cloak to Dante's stage. SWAT team arrives to take down Dante, but it doesn't work because Dante is pretty much all-powerful. Scarlet has the cloak for a moment, but Dante takes it back. They have a fight on the walls. So if you touch the cloak, you can have Force powers. Dante's dead because Scarlet can control the cloak, and the cloak ate Dante because the cloak just kind of like just goes nom 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 nom, pretty much.
Yep.
Then
almost exactly what happens.
Yep.
Because you, like the person gets dragged under, and so they're basically, I'm sure, told by the director, struggle some more, because it's just like that.
It essentially looks like Dante's being eaten by some laundry.
Yeah, just it's a black sheet. Let's see. People guessing what happened to Dante and the cloak. So there is those talking head segments. Cut to footage of Scarlet recording herself with the cloak in a case. So like she has like a briefcase or like a piece of luggage. She's holding a regular camera. Now we go to footage from her webcam. So the rules on this seems like if there's any camera around, we are somehow getting the footage. So that's what's happening. Scarlet's in her bedroom and the cloak's hanging in the closet. She goes to the closet, opens the door, and something came out of the cloak and grabs Scarlet into the cloak. End of the story. Then we go back to Kevin and Iris.
Exactly like a Twilight Zone episode. I mean, it's very
not
much
the clever part.
Yeah,
Twilight Zone's clever.
Yeah.
This is like new Twilight Zone.
There were some really crappy episodes of Twilight Zone too. So this is more like in that vein.
This is more like the Forrest Whitaker line of Twilight Zones, the one that ran on UPN. You remember that pile of garbage?
Yeah.
It's like, look, it's gonna be spooky. It's spooky.
I really wanted it to be better because, again, my buddy's in it, so I really wanted it to be a good segment. But I just think it just fell flat. And again, no fault to any of the actors. This was just kind of a not really interesting idea ultimately. So I don't think there would have been a way of doing this where it wouldn't have felt cliched.
Did you enjoy when the SWAT team is descending upon Dante, and the SWAT team thinks they've shot Dante, and down goes the cloaked man? The SWAT member goes over, removes the cape, sees a little bald man, and then looks over to the other SWAT team member, who then shoots him because pulls off the mask. It's Dante, triumphantly standing there.
I liked it because it was very reminiscent of lots of different stage magician acts, except done with like now it's a murder as opposed to an act of entertainment. I like those touches. I thought that was a little clever, where a lot of Dante's attacks were inspired by stage magic because he was so obsessed with it, which was a little clever. I wish it had gone a little further with that. Either in a direction where it would have been truly, entertaining and scary, or even entertaining and funny. That would have been fine too, as long as it's still, in the vein of horror. It could be a horror comedy kind of thing. It's a little weird for that, considering the tone of VHS series as a whole. It does not tend to be very comedic, but yeah, I mean, it was largely forgettable. We got a little more segment of the wraparound. At this point, the girlfriend, Iris, had left the house, and the boyfriend is trying to chase down the ice cream truck, both to get the viral images and also because he's looking for his girlfriend. He's getting these weird video calls that he sees Iris on them, and she appears to be in great distress, so he's trying to track her down. I'm not sure how he connects the girlfriend with the ice cream truck, honestly. It never really seems like there's any moment in the wraparound story where there's a reason for him to connect the two. And this is not the only problem. We also see during the wraparound, we might as well discuss this too, because it's going to get messy if we go back to the wraparound each time. In the wraparound, occasionally we see other characters act out in weird ways. And I read, when I was reading the synopsis, it was saying, oh, what's happening is that they are seeing some of the video being broadcast from this ice cream truck, and that is causing them to act in violent, bizarre ways. I didn't get that when I was watching it, and maybe I wasn't paying enough attention, but to me it just looked like people were suddenly getting weird for no reason. Like I didn't see the connection between their actions and the stuff that was going on with the wraparound. It just seemed like the world had just gone crazy for no reason. And then ultimately the boyfriend tracks down the girlfriend who has or tracks down the ice cream truck anyway, goes inside it, sees a bunch of television monitors. His girlfriend appears on the monitors and talks to him and tells him that he has to hit a switch to upload the crazy video to the area. It just says upload, and it's a physical mechanical switch. So you just go click and then everybody gets it, I guess. So this is really weird. I don't and the guy has somehow connected the fact that the videos are causing the crazed violence, and that if he does this, it's going to make the city end up having that same problem. Again, there was no moment in the wraparound where the guy could have drawn this connection. In the entire wraparound, he's on his bicycle trying to chase down this ice cream truck, which for some reason has lost its police tail. That makes no sense because it's been doing the same route over and over and over again. None of that made any sense. And of course, he does end up flipping the switch, which causes the city to kind of fall apart in chaos. And it was just so sloppily handled. If you want to see that done well, watch The Signal, another movie that Justin Welborn is in, because that's a movie where this mysterious signal starts scrambling people's brains and they behave in very odd and often violent ways. But it makes, even though you never know where the origin of the signal is, like you don't know what caused it in that movie, it makes more sense. Did you guys have, did I miss something in the wraparound? Was there something you guys saw that I didn't?
No, Eric, are you muted, by the way? Because it looks like you've been talking, and are you?
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything from you.
I don't hear you at all. Just interrupt me when you're ready, because I'm just going to say some stuff about the wraparound. I think you're right, Jonathan. There's nothing that explains that, but I think it actually does explain why the police tail disappears, because in one part of the story, we do see a cop car flying through a windshield. So, like, I think the cops are being driven mad as well. Maybe they're seeing what's going on through either the radio stations or their own phones. So they are probably killing themselves off. And that's why the police tail gets gone, because I hear something.
Did that bring? Whoa! All right.
Hey, it's Eric.
There's Eric.
You know, in our last
Eric,
episode, our unexpected episode,
no, that's
Eric was
okay.
about the same way. So go ahead. Let's over to you. That way.
Yeah. Did you see something else that I missed, Eric?
No, that's what I was going to say. There was like I actually watched this twice, because the first time around I wasn't paying attention after I stopped after the 20 minutes. So I actually just watched it again. And one of the things I was trying to watch for was how does he put this together? Like, does he actually put this together? And yeah, I watched it all the way through again. No, there is literally nothing that cues you in that, this is how he figured that out.
Well, Kevin's kind of an idiot, right? So he runs out into the street. He wants to record something that's viral. He sees a cop who's like, get back in the house, get back in the house. So he's shooting him. This ice cream truck runs over the cop, an arm goes flying off. Iris is walking into the street as this ice cream truck is showing up at the same time. I think, and as the truck goes by, Iris is missing right after that. So for some reason, he put together the idea that, well, it must have scooped her up. No pun intended. But how the hell did she get inside the truck? That would be a huge leap. It seemed like to me the logical conclusion would be that she, I don't know, is hiding behind a car that's across the street, because she's not fucking Batman. She's somewhere. So he's just chasing, because he's an idiot. Poor old Iris. And that's the logic, because I don't know what Kevin's on throughout this movie, but
and we never, again, Kevin never has the opportunity to learn that the videos being, first, he doesn't know that the videos are coming from the ice cream truck at first. So there's no way he could have drawn the conclusion that, the videos are what are making people go crazy. Also, he was not present for some of the crazy stuff we see. Like, there's this whole party where everyone goes bonkers, and one guy ends up slaughtering everyone at the party.
Wait, that guy deserved to slaughter everybody else because somebody put a freaking barbecue fork in his little dog's head, and
that
then
was
the guy
the worst
stabbed.
looking effect. The dog looks so happy. The dog
that's
just
why
looks so happy.
That's why I loved that effect. Because they do the cut to the dog, and it's just a fork in the head, and the dog is just sitting there with blood trickling down. I thought that was hilarious.
So let's paint the picture here. So during this whole movie, Kevin is chasing this ice cream truck, right? And from time to time, we are like given scenes of stuff that's going around as Kevin is going past. And we stop into this most incredibly stereotypical Latino criminal element hanging out, you know? Like you got the full on.
It was clearly an in between episode of Breaking Bad.
Right. So you got like it's the guy with the blue and white kind of checked shirt, like the blue and white bandana. He's sitting at a barbecue. There's a guy who's hanging out who's all tatted up and big. This other guy's got that bracelet on his ankle that basically says you're under house arrest. You got like the giant hoop earrings on the girls. It's like flat out. Just okay. Somebody's like, let me look up some stereotypes. Put them all together. So they all put them together in this section. And the man who's sitting there chilling at the barbecue has a dog on his lap who's sitting up so happy. We cut to black, and then there's a CG fork in the head of this dog who remains smiling. And so it appears that the man who is without the shirt that's across the way, who has the police jewelry on his ankle, he appears to be the culprit. So then the dog owner slaughters everybody with forks, which I thought was fucking awesome, by the way. Very, very poetic. You see like dinner forks.
I think one person was killed with tongs.
I did not see the tongs. I must have missed the tongs while I was writing notes, but and then the whole thing's being videotaped by somebody because this dude threatens whoever's recording, you better erase that, holding a knife. And
I think it's supposed to be a kid too. I think it's a kid that's shooting it. Because there's an earlier line where it sounds like it was delivered to a child. At any rate, so that's one of the little segments that happen that Kevin apparently is able to connect to the ice cream truck, even though Kevin was not there to actually witness what happened. He rode by it, but didn't see the actual events unfold. And two, there was no way of connecting it to any kind of I didn't even notice in that sequence that anyone watched a video or otherwise had been affected in some way. It just seemed like there were a bunch of dangerous people all hanging out at a party, and then one of them, for reasons unbeknownst to anybody else, stabs a dog in the head with a fork.
No, well, technically the ice cream truck goes by them. They go batshit crazy. Kevin's behind them on the bike. So if it's like a signal that's driving them nuts, not that they have to watch a video because that's too easy. Maybe somebody did watch it at this big party, but they never show us that.
You would think that Kevin would have been like uber nuts by then because he had been riding after that ice cream truck for a full segment. Dante on stage and everything.
I'm doing far too much work for the movie, okay?
Yeah.
Because none of this shit's explained. We're making this stuff up. I say we take this wraparound and throw it out because that's done with. Because I mean,
it is the wraparound is the worst of the. Well, I don't know. The wraparound and the skateboarders might tie for me, but
we got to move to the Alfonsos, man, because the Alfonsos are fucking awesome.
This is the
Martas.
Best.
Best part of the
best. Movie. Yeah. Yes, this was the strongest one. It had a real sense of wonder and then unease and what the hell is happening, and then horror, and it ends terribly. So it's a great little horror segment. It's like a Tales from the Crypt. If the other one was like a Twilight Zone, this was more like a Tales from the Crypt, right? So the story is that you have a character, Alfonso, and his wife Marta. His wife Marta goes up to bed, and he is in his, I guess, basement, working on something that looks like a little gateway. But it's a computer system, electronic gateway of some sort. And he gets it to light up, which is apparently really exciting. This is all in Spanish. This is the one where we had to turn the captions on eventually to figure out what was happening, except for Ayaz, who always has captions on all the movies he watches. Because you don't want to miss any of those subtle subtle lines in your Lifetime original movies. Anyway,
True story.
So,
By the way, you saw that Full House. There's a Lifetime unauthorized movie coming for Full House. I can't wait.
So Alfonso gets the door to light up, and then it rolls up like a garage door, like a garage door, and or a storage facility door, one of those. Like it rolls up, and he sees a mirror image of the room that he is in. Everything is the same, but mirror reversed, including a camera that's set up to look into his room. He has a camera that's set up to look into the other room, and then he sees a mirror image version of himself, and they are independent. They're not like moving in as a mirror image. They can talk to one another. And it turns out that it's a parallel dimension, and the parallel dimension version of himself is just as excited as he is, because they both have made this discovery at the same time, because again, it's parallel. And then the parallel version of Alfonso, they exchange a little information and reveal that there are certain details of their lives that are definitely the same. The parallel version of Alfonso says, I propose we switch places for 15 minutes, meet back here in 15, and just experience what the other person's dimension is like. And so they do. And so Alfonso from the original dimension goes through.
I call him Alfonso 1. This makes it a lot easier because I have notes about this. So yeah, go ahead.
And so they switch places, and at first everything again looks the same, except obviously Alfonso 1 comments on the fact that everything is reversed. Like the door is on the wrong side of the room, the doorknob's on the wrong side of the door. I even noticed, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but there's a point where Alfonso 1 meets two guys in Alfonso 2's home, and when they go to shake his hand, they use their left hands.
Well, that's pretty neat.
Because when I was watching, as I was watching, I was like, well, that's weird, because I'm left-handed. So for me, shaking hands with my right hand always feels weird, but that's the way you do it. So seeing someone reach out the left hand was like, it immediately struck me as odd, because that's the way I would want to shake hands. So that was one of those things that I was just immediately like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And that's when I actually,
that's when the horror set in.
That's when you
universe have we entered.
Well, no, at that point, this was when I was still watching it in Spanish at this point, so I had no idea what was going on.
Pretty far.
So I went back. I went back to the beginning of the segment because I didn't even know that turning the captions on was going to work. Right. I went back. I turned on the captions, saw that it was working, went back to the beginning and watched it again. At any rate, when they're going up the stairs before they've encountered any other people, the first clue that something is really, really fucking wrong is that when Alfonso 2 is climbing Alfonso 1 stairs, he sees a photograph of Alfonso 1 and Marta 1 at their wedding. Whereas Alfonso 1, while climbing Alfonso 2 stairs, sees a photograph of a pentagram drawn on the floor with a tripod that has a suspended bag of something raw and bloody inside of it.
Yeah, I got my note here. Alfonso 1 sees some kind of occult picture hanging up on the wall of Alfonso 2. Alfonso 2 finds a wedding picture in an analogous spot. Alfonso 1 is talking to Marta 2, who is readying champagne. Should I continue on this one?
Well, before you do, I just want to make one other note, which is that when Alfonso 2 sees the wedding photo, he's the one who's like, what is this?
Oh, yeah.
And I love that.
Because Alfonso 1 does not say anything. He just like...
Right, Alfonso 1 is just staring silent at this crazy image of a bloody bag suspended over a pentagram and doesn't say anything, whereas Alfonso 2 is looking at a wedding photo. Is like, what is this? I love that.
And in this story, both the Alfonsos are carrying cameras. So you're seeing first-person point of view stuff here the whole time. So it's pretty cool compared to the other story with Dante.
Camera work is really good in this one, as opposed to
we're sticking. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's it. Like we have just the point of view of the camera, like I'm pretty sure the entire time. So we just have both cameras.
It does get a little weird because there is the point where Alfonso 1 starts talking with both Marta 2. And the guests, and continues running the camera the whole time, which feels a little artificial. Like it would be a little weird to be able to keep doing that, even surreptitiously. But apart from that, that's a minor quibble. Apart from that, is extremely consistent.
To me, it seemed like he put the camera down on his lap and he was just listening because he's like, what the hell's going on? So let's go to this. So Alfonso 1 is talking to Marta 2, who is reading champagne. So Alfonso 1's the original guy that we start the story with. Marta 2 is obviously in the parallel universe. Alfonso 2 is going up the stairs of Alfonso 1's house. Alfonso 1 is meeting Oriel, or I guess Oriel, a guy who by the pool in a bathing suit. Now Oriel 2 with a beard. Alfonso 2. So there's two guys named Oriel in this world. They are hanging out with Marta by the pool. Alfonso 2. Marta 2, thank you. Alfonso 2 finds Marta 1 in the bedroom. Back to Marta 2. She's trying to get the men drunk. Alfonso 2 is into some weird shit. There's a bag of meat suspended in the living room with candles surrounding it, and there's a pool of blood beneath it. Alfonso 2 is taking pictures of Marta 1. Alfonso 1 is confused about what they were supposed to do in the living room, as am I. Marta 2 is clearly not a fan of Alfonso. It doesn't matter which one, because she doesn't like him very much. Alfonso runs outside to check out what a loud humming is. Goes outside. It's a large blimp with an upside-down, like, glowing crucifix, and it's got these giant horns that make these noise. Not horns like devil horns, but like air horns.
You skipped one part, which is that before he runs outside, because that's when he gets confronted by the two dudes who are out there. Mm-hmm. Before he runs outside, they are sitting by the bag of meat, and Marta 2 is like, says to the other two gentlemen, Oriel? Is that what you said?
Oriel, yes.
Yeah. My husband likes to go first. And of course, Alfonso 1 has no idea what he's supposed to do.
Neither do we.
Right, neither do we. And we actually never figure that out. We can kind of figure it out. But so then the wife, the two guys just leave. I don't remember if there was really an interaction there before they leave.
Here's what happens. Marta 2 says to the guys, like, do you mind if my husband goes first? And both the guys are like, no, that's cool. And there's no discussion about what it is that Alfonso 1 is supposed to do, because presumably all the characters would be very familiar with whatever the ritual that is supposed to happen, how it goes. Also, we didn't mention this entire time in Alfonso 2's house, there is a video playing on a television that's showing a burning weird structure, and you hear a woman moaning as if in the throes of sexual passion. But there's no image of any people. It's just flames and this weird structure.
It's like a burning corpse. It shows up at one point. Like it's it's on a pyre, like burning. Yeah.
Yeah. At any rate, you're hearing this sort of ecstatic moaning going on at the same time. So it's like it's a porno, although again it's all these flames. And so what happens is, because Alfonso 1 doesn't do whatever he's supposed to do, because he doesn't know what it is. Then, and I really do like that we're never told specifically what the ritual was going to be. We could all
why
make
they have it
guesses.
framed on the wall. That's the other thing. The ritual, whatever the hell the ritual is, it's the thing that's framed on the wall. So they do it in their living room, and they also keep it on the wall. So I'm not sure what that is, because it doesn't fit anything. Like, there's baptisms, you don't do that inside the house. I guess maybe you do it with like a verse, but I don't know.
The whole point is that this parallel dimension is fundamentally different from our own. It's identical in ways that are surprising, but in other ways, it is so different that it's clearly like it's beyond our understanding. It starts to get sort of Lovecraftian. So what happens is, when Alfonso 1 doesn't take initiative and do whatever he is supposed to do, the Orioles both decide that they are that this is awkward and not working out, and they say maybe some other time, and they leave. And Marta 2 gets upset because Alfonso has ruined their evening, and has said that it really hurts her self-esteem because he didn't do whatever it was he was supposed to do. And that's when Alfonso 1 is asking, what's that noise? There's this loud humming. And of course, Marta 2 is like, what do you mean, what's that noise? Of course you know what that noise is. Like, I'm not going to dignify that with a response because clearly this is something that's normal in their world. So, you would never ask that. It would seem like if someone you knew was asking what a noise was, and it was a noise that you guys had been hearing the entire time, like you've known each other, you would expect that they are just trying to be evasive, that they're trying to avoid talking about the real subject, which is their, obvious relationship issues. So Alfonso 1 runs outside to get a look. This is where he sees the blimp with the upside down crucifix. Clearly there's some sort of antichrist satanic kind of thing going on with this world. And the two Orioles turn around and see him. And first they think that maybe he's changed his mind. And then they think that they get upset because they see that he's still shooting video. And they're wondering what the hell's going on. And then their faces start glowing.
Yep. So they don't like being recorded. Now the Orioles have glowing eyes, mouths, and demon voices, which is kind of unfortunate because the captions actually say demonic voices. Alfonso 2. So we go to Alfonso 2, who's hanging out with Marta. He's unbuttoning his pants because, that's what you do at the foot of the bed. And his eyes start glowing and his mouth starts glowing. So you're like, oh, okay, something's happening there.
And Marta 1 has been in bed this whole time. That's where
Marta 1 is like, come to bed.
Alfonso 2 discovers her. Yeah.
So then we cut back to Alfonso 2 on parallel universe, like completely fucked up. He's like down on the ground, and the two Orioles show up, and they're glowing and they're angry, and they start removing their pants. Now this is my notes because I didn't have a note about this. What I just said there. Penis hand puppets come out of their pants. Alfonso 2 in front of Marta 1. Orioles to Alfonso 1. We got to talk about that because the next note's about Marta. But didn't see that coming at all. And when I say penis hand puppets, I mean like it appears to be a hand puppet with a mouth that has teeth that's about... I mean, it looks like something that would be out of Thanksgiving, man. Like it's not like it's a bat puppet, but it's also like the angle it's shot, you're seeing like here's a leg and like boom, there's a penis puppet.
Yeah.
To kill you, and it's meant to threaten you. And I'm like kind of laughing at what's happening because it's a massive thing.
It's apparently like some form of demonic genitalia. And we do eventually learn that women have a compatible
analog
set of demonic genitalia. So we see that he gets away from the Orioles and then runs into the house, and then he sees Marta 2, who has this demonic genitalia.
He gets away by stabbing one of them in the penis puppet with a fucking screwdriver. Okay, he has a screwdriver for some reason, pierces this guy and runs, which is what you should do. I don't know what he did to the other Oriole, but he did stab one of them in the penis puppet.
He had a screwdriver, by the way, because he had been working on his invention and just had stashed it when he had turned on the invention. Okay. So that part I was like perfectly fine with. He runs back into the house, and you see that there's Marta 2, who has her crazy demonic female genitalia that is just as disturbing as the penis hand puppet. And he starts to try and make his way back to the gate, ends up punching Marta 2 a couple times in order to do so. Meanwhile, we realize that Alfonso 2 is essentially attempting to rape Marta 1 with his demonic genitalia, probably not realizing that she does not possess the compatible genitalia. He's probably thinking that the anatomy of Alfonso 1 and Marta 1 is identical to his own. He has no reason to think otherwise. So Alfonso 1 manages to make it back into his own universe. Alfonso 2 wanders into the room, and he is covered in blood, which does not make Alfonso 1 very happy. And here's where we get into the tragic ending of our tale, in that Alfonso 2 ends up being killed by Marta 2 because Alfonso 2 goes back into his dimension, and Marta 2 assumes that Alfonso 2 is the same person who just beat her up. So she kills him by eating him with her female genitalia, her demonic genitalia.
Yeah, what I have here is Marta 2, who then goes demonic and kills Alfonso 2 with her sex organ teeth.
Yep.
Yeah, that's accurate. And then Alfonso 1, who has been injured, he's been stabbed. He was stabbed by Alfonso 2. And he's also, been deeply traumatized. He doesn't know if his wife is alive or not. He has no clue what's happened. Marta 1 slowly walks into the room and she's carrying a knife. She sees Alfonso 1 there, assumes that that's the same person who attacked her with a penis puppet, and then stabs him to death.
With a butcher knife. And it's incredible because it's like, you know what? Don't marry Marta because you'll fucking die.
In whatever universe you want.
It doesn't matter. And Alfonso will be the reason why. I mean, they kind of
a better takeaway. If you ever get to a parallel universe, try looking at some porn first. See what's going on.
It's like, what?
You take one look and penis puppets. All right, we're done.
Wrong universe.
I like this idea. I mean, we watch enough time travel movies. The idea, don't interact with yourself. Don't be in a position where there's two of you. Don't change anything. But Eric Sandin's advice for those of you who decide to be in a parallel universe, I guess I was talking about time travel, making them similar, is to check the porn before you go on to whatever it is you're going to do.
It's solid advice, to be honest. I mean,
how would you know it was porn? I mean, you go watch, if you're like in the U.S., not the U.S., I mean, like in this universe, you're like, here's hentai. You're like, fuck.
True. You'd have to do a lot of research, really.
What if you discover that the porn is perfectly normal, but then eventually you discover that in that universe, 2.5 Men is considered highbrow comedy?
That's so definitely check out.
Step 2 is check out sitcoms. Because you do not want to be there either. I mean,
I'm sure Stephen Hawking is all over this porn and sitcom theory. It's very well known.
At any rate, I think we're pitching a David Lynch series right now, actually. But at any rate, like we said, this was the strongest of the segments, I think. Also, I know you said, the moral of the story is don't marry Marta, but let's be fair. Marta was smoking hot and way out of Alfonso's league. Alfonso was going to take that opportunity, both 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, Alfonso's penis puppet couldn't deny the sex organ teeth of Marta, too.
So that's the conclusion of that one. And really, I mean, I would recommend for anyone who wants to watch VHS Viral. I know we just spoiled the entire second segment.
Oh, yeah, spoiler. We're going to spoil shit here. We didn't say that. We forgot to say that. Oops.
Well, we always do. I mean, we always spoil everything. So it's, but I would recommend just watching that segment. Like, don't bother with the wraparound or the first segment, and don't keep watching afterward. But that second segment is worth watching. If anything, if nothing else, one, it does found footage really well compared to the other segments. And two, it actually has a sense of bizarre, like I think of it as weird fiction, like in the Lovecraftian sense. It feels like that. So I recommend that one. Then we get to the third one, which is a bunch of douchebag skateboarders and a douchebag videographer trying to make a douchebag skateboarding video. No one in that segment is remotely likable. Douchebag director suggests they go down to Tijuana. After some resistance, the douchebag skateboarders agree. They go to Tijuana. They're skating inside what do you call those?
Culvert.
The big.
What's
that?
Culvert, runoff, ditch.
We
call them arroyos in New Mexico.
It's way bigger than a ditch, but yeah, those big concrete things. Like the big climactic race scene in Greece takes place in one. Anyway, they're in one of those skating around, and then you see like this weird cult lady, and hear this odd chanting. And then shit goes wrong, and a bunch of cultists try and attack them, and they fight back. And this one was terrible in every way. There were no likable characters. I didn't care if they lived or died. I didn't even care to see them get killed, which ultimately that's what I think filmmakers are aiming for. If they make a film where there are no likable characters, something like Hostel, You're just waiting for people to get killed because they're all despicable. I didn't even care at that point. And the skateboarders last way longer than they really should be able to.
Yeah, that segment was long. It goes on much longer than you expect it to.
Yeah.
Like probably
it takes
twice as long.
It takes a while before they even get to Tijuana. So for the first part, it's like you're watching a super shitty skateboarding video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And everyone's wearing helmets that have GoPros that face out and in. Like there's one facing out and one facing in, so you get to see the expressions on the faces. And the expressions go from confusion to mild terror.
You know, I of all the things about this segment, I mean, it's generally pretty awful. Okay, you've got, like you said, a bunch of unlikable characters. You've got an unexplained. Here's a mystical element. So when they go to this runoff area where there's all these pentagrams over there, if any blood touches the ground, it's on fire. I'm like, that's pretty cool because, you know, it's cursed or there's some kind of shit that's going to go down. You got all of these creepy dudes showing up. They look like Dia de las Muertas kind of gear, like on their faces. They look like they have skulls on their faces. They look all evil and like, okay, they're the bad guys, maybe, because I mean we have the douchebag teenagers. So like, who's the bad guy and what's going on? So they have this fight, and I think the only thing that's actually redeeming about this entire segment is watching the first person killings back and forth, because you have a camera that's in on the face of the person, you got a camera that's out on on what's going on. So we're getting cuts back and forth between this. So you have like these skateboarders who should not be surviving, and you see the skateboard go flying across somebody, and then you're seeing the reaction on their face, and it's kind of dead because like they don't know what the fuck to do either, because like this is not a normal situation. These kids are used to like recording stupid shit, and there's not supposed to be mystical elements showing up like, hey, we're gonna kill you now because you happen to be here. So as much as I disliked this segment, I thought that the viewpoint that you got was so different. It kind of felt like, you know, if you ever watch Fear Factor, that very unnerving camera that's super steady on somebody's face and their body keeps moving, the background keeps moving. It's really weird to see that, especially when your main characters are killing other characters. So you're seeing a lot of like gritty first person point of view stuff that you normally don't see other than like in video games. So I thought that was pretty neat.
But I just wish that there had been some reaction from the characters, right? Like,
well, yeah,
when you're getting the reaction shots, the reverse shots that are on the characters' faces because of the inward facing GoPro, they look like dumbass, dull skateboarding douchebags. They never seemed like they didn't. First of all, I don't think these guys were really actors because there was no real acting going on in their faces, at least. Yeah.
Well, here's the line that one of them says that I really loved. Quote, "They killed Gas Money Kid and the camera guy."
Yeah, they never bothered to learn their names.
Yeah.
That's what they actually say, because there's like 4 of them and maybe 2 of them get out, because the way they get to Tijuana is because somebody's got gas money and they're taking advantage of him. And camera guy is this apparently hapless guy who can't take footage of them, which he apparently does very well because we see the footage working. So unless like we have a mystical VHS tape, that we probably do.
I think the message we're supposed to get as the viewers is that the guy shooting the footage is well, one, he's an idiot, and 2,
and he gets eaten too.
And he's also an asshole. He's just a total asshole, right?
Wait, which
he's
guy?
Camera guy, because he's constantly trying to get the
camera guy
skateboarders. I know that he dies, but before he dies, he gets to be a massive asshole. Because before they go down to Tijuana, he's constantly trying to get the skateboarders to do other stupid stuff. Sometimes stuff that has nothing to do with skateboarding. He's just a douchebag. He's like, why don't you guys do the such and such, or do that, or do one of these other things? And the skateboarders are just as big douchebags. And they're like, fuck you, camera guy. And he even encounters another skateboarder who says, hey, have you finished my video? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's done. So it indicates that this is a guy who's shooting lots of footage, and he's trying to get people to do dumb things because he finds it entertaining to shoot them doing stupid shit, but he never has the dedication to actually edit the videos together and publish them. Like, you get the feeling this is a guy who's just shooting stuff but never really bothering to do anything with it after that because that's too much like work. That's the implication I got.
You're right, because
and
the douchiness of the skateboarders is so high. The camera guy's douchiness is not as high. So, like, I thought he was normal, but you're
it's
right.
only,
In retrospect, you're totally right. He's completely.
it
He's like,
seems
"Hey
normal
guys, come
only.
down. You're
It seems
clear." And
normal
this
only
guy,
because it seems normal only because there are two douchey skateboarders and only one
man.
douchey camera guy.
yeah, the skateboarders are fucking obnoxious, and
Yeah.
they're flat out like, if you want to see, imagine if either these are the best actors ever because they totally sound like teenagers and they got some really bad storytelling abilities, or they're shitty actors who have really bad storytelling ability. It was just like, okay, this is interesting. And they had the standard young man mustache, which is just here and here. If you're in the audio version of this podcast, I am just touching right above the lip on the corners. That's the area they have this mustache that you grow. And you're like, man, you should not be driving a car, and you should not be going to Tijuana, and you shouldn't be fighting mystical Mexican. What would you even call them? Are they a death cult, or are they like spirits?
I think it was supposed to be a cult of some sort, and that the leader of the cult was capable of resurrecting all the dead cult members, like, because the cult members seem to get killed by the skateboarders, and then the cult leader is able to bring the dead ones back up, like they become like skeletons who are able to attack the skateboarders. I was on the side of the cult on this one, honestly. We knew nothing about them. We knew nothing about them. So it's entirely possible that the cult leader and the cultists were just as big douchebags as everybody else in this show. But because they did not have the opportunity to display douchebaggery, I gave them the opportunity to perhaps be less of a douche than everybody else in this. So therefore, I was on their side. Also, their costumes were interesting. I mean, not to the point where it was like you would think they were truly remarkable, but it showed effort. Like I thought that the cult members, that stuff showed the most effort in that segment, apart from the actual skateboarding.
Wait. Are you saying that in the context of the movie making of this thing, or is it something like in the context of the reality of the movie?
The movie making. Yeah.
In the reality of the movie, the cult members definitely took more care in their appearance than those skateboarders did.
It's true.
I'm like,
so
is
both,
Jonathan?
Really.
I'm like, is Jonathan talking about like one of the weirdest points in the history of this show? You're like, well, they tried harder in the movie to wear makeup, so I liked them more, which would have been that actually worked for me, because I'm like, these guys are dressed up pretty neat, and I like the fact that they actually bother to wear makeup. The fact that they get shot and they get killed right away is beside the point. But I thought was kind of neat. I'm pretty sure the GoPros probably hid a lot of shitty effects, because there's a couple of scenes where you're seeing these skeletons. And like, it's clearly a plastic rubber mask over somebody's head. So the skeleton head is like gigantic over the shoulders. And I'm like, you know what? It probably looks way shittier on something that's not a GoPro, because this stuff looks like it actually was shot on that. So it looks kind of low res, and it hid stuff. So I like the idea that somebody was thinking about this, because the practical effects in this movie, and this part of the movie, is pretty good. You're seeing a lot of blood. You're seeing a lot of skeletons. I particularly liked when these douchebags were putting firecrackers in the blood cult, and one flips off the camera.
Just before,
and then it blows up. Yeah, I thought that was
that was a welcome bit of genuine comedy in this otherwise bleak and unentertaining segment. And then, the worst part of this segment is that apparently the two skateboarding douchebags get away. That's the worst part. Like, maybe they get caught at some point, and that wasn't caught on camera, because they're still in Tijuana.
They do get caught, because remember, there's a police helicopter that shows up, and they're like, look at this. And they actually break from Spanish to English, and they say, fuck that, and let's go. So what I thought that meant was they were going to descend and take care of shit. But that also sounds like, now that I say it, they probably just left.
Well, no.
I took that as they're flying off.
Yeah, and I also thought that happened before the two skateboarders are like in a kind of a pathway that seems to be more or less clear, right? Like the helicopter comes in when the general melee is still going on, then they, the federales or whatever are like, fuck this, and they're like, you know what? No, let's go deal with some cartels. This shit is just way too crazy, and they fly away. But then I think the two skateboarders still manage to escape after that. They're still being chased by the undead at that point, but they're in the process of getting away. They're still stuck in Tijuana, so you don't know how they get out if they do get out. But that's how it ends, as I recall. Now, granted,
here's hoping they died miserable deaths. Here's to you,
amen to that.
douchebags.
Amen to that. Yeah. So this was this was nowhere near the worst movie that we've had to watch for this show at all.
Absolutely
nowhere close to it.
No.
And it even had, like, that middle segment was legitimately entertaining, and I don't think I would want to see an expanded version of that story. I think it was just as long as it needed to be, but I would love to see more from that filmmaker. Because I liked the idea and the execution of the idea. I thought it was the best out of the three. So if you are a fan of the VHS series and haven't seen Viral yet, now you don't need to. You're welcome.
Or just watch the middle part. When it goes into Spanish and you're seeing the guy build the portal. So I'm like, the motherfucker's built a teleporter. That's what I thought he was doing. I'm like, oh, it's a portal. Okay, cool.
I thought it was Stargate.
And it's really, you know what? It's got a very modest budget, because when you look at the portal he's made, it's kind of like, what is it? Some flashing from Home Depot? What am I looking at here? Is this like a door jam? It's effectively a really dressed up door jam. It's pretty. I mean, it does the job, because the story, going back to it, not that I want to harp on it, you guys have mentioned this, the idea that I think all of us were super curious of, like, okay, so what the hell is with the bag of meat? And what's going on here? And why? Wait, now they're demons, and this is normal there? Like even when they explain shit to you or they show you what's going on, it's still like, what? The big question at the end is, it's like, what were they supposed to do with the meat? I don't ever want to know the answer to that. Don't ever tell me the answer.
I love that they don't explain. So that's one of those cases where you can tell that the lack of explanation was a calculated decision, as opposed to something that was overlooked or edited out. I hate when I watch a movie where you feel like there needed to be an explanation to justify a character's actions or the way the plot unfolded, and there isn't one, and it just leaves you wondering, well, why the hell did it happen that way? This way, it was done the way a good story needs to, if you're going to leave that kind of stuff out. It did it on purpose because we were limited by the perspective of the characters. And the characters had a limited set of knowledge, so therefore we, the audience, also had that limited knowledge, which is absolutely necessary in a found footage approach.
Yeah.
So I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, I think exposition about the bag of meat would have just ruined the whole sketch.
No, just in all captions, like Marta too, being like, "You know what the bag of meat's for? We cook it." Like, duh. That would have been like, ah, shit.
Look, cook your meat.
Get out your penis puppets. Why are there three guys? What are the turns? Why are there turns with the bag of meat? Because the bag of meat's not that big. It's about the size of a basketball. The penis puppets
or were the husband and wife supposed to consume the two Orioles, and they were just okay with that?
So that she says a line right when he comes back, something to the extent of, "Why are you covered in blood? Oh, did you do something? If you had wanted to do something with them by yourself, you could have told me." And that's like the line where I was like, there's something there.
It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
Anyway, it is my turn. I tried looking for something other than what Jonathan suggested. But
I know what's happening.
After looking up the score on Rotten Tomatoes, I can't. So it is.
You're not doing this. You're not doing. If you follow us on Twitter, and I mean us individually, we had a conversation about this today. Today's the 29th of April. If you're gonna say, I was gonna say, I don't know why I was gonna say February. Why the? Wait, you're not gonna say.
A leap year.
Go ahead. Say what you're gonna say, you son of a bitch.
It is Left Behind, the
We already
Nicolas
watched
Cage
that.
film. We've already watched one, and
I
they
watched
redid it.
2 of them.
We did actually. Yeah,
It's
the sequel.
110 minutes, you fucker.
Oh,
Yeah, we
come on!
watched-
You can watch it in double speed.
We
It
watched,
doesn't do that on
we
Netflix.
watched- if you guys have been watching the show, we watched Left Behind 2 with Kurt Cameron because we said, fuck continuity. We're not watching the first one. I honestly can't remember why we chose to start with the second one.
And Left Behind 3 or something like that seemed more interesting because of
yeah, 'cause I watched Left Behind 3
Yeah.
and it was so apeshit crazy. It was awesome.
All right,
The Poison Bibles was the best part.
Yeah.
I have to read. I have to read some of these reviews, man, because these are
so
amazing.
so the Rotten Tomatoes, the Kirk Cameron movie has a 12%. The Nicolas Cage version of the same movie has a 2%.
Wow. Hey,
and this is 2014.
Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 has a higher rating now.
This movie's got Nic Cage, Chad Michael Murray, Cassie Thompson, Nikki Whelan, Jordan Sparks of American Idol fame, Leah Thompson. Okay. Okay. All right. So hang on. Oh, jeez Louise. All right. Recent reviews. As bad as all the reviews here are, I would like to give it a shot. If only the picture and the audio were synchronized in streaming.
Oh, no.
That could piss me off. Here's another one.
Awesome.
Do not watch this movie. Complete waste of time. That's all in caps. You will figure it out in 10 minutes, and it takes them 90 minutes. And then the ending, no sense. Netflix, because it has an exclamation instead of an I in Netflix, should do their customers a favor and just delete this now. So
we have to watch it
to my
before
list.
they do that.
It says for PWP, my profile, which I rate highly the movies that are horrible and low movies that are good. It says 2 stars. Average rating is 3.1. It's got one of the shittiest photoshopped covers of all time. Left Behind 2014 is the movie. I bet I get to 2.5 minutes before I say fuck this and fuck you.
I didn't realize that the other Left Behind movies, are they still available on Netflix? I thought they were taken off. But
They are still available.
There. Maybe I'll even watch the Kirk Cameron one afterward, just so I can compare the two, because I still haven't watched the first one.
Well, it's the first.
I watched Left Behind 2 and Left Behind World at War, but never watched the first one.
It sounds like they have slightly different plots. Maybe they rewrote it. I don't know. Anyway, we'll find out.
We'll see if Left Behind 2 makes more sense with this version, Left Behind 1.
Right.
This one, let's see what they think. What do they think I would...
This is going to be awful.
They 3.1 stars. It doesn't tell me. Why isn't it telling me what I would think?
It can't display something so negative. It just doesn't.
It's so
the
weird.
algorithm's like, this is a negative star rating. We don't have the ability to show Jonathan this.
It doesn't have it.
Oh, that's true.
This is
yeah,
the
mine
first
doesn't.
time I've ever seen it.
It doesn't say.
That's amazing.
I mean,
so
if I highlight the movie, then it says our best guess, and it has a star, and then the tiniest tip of the second star is filled in. But that's it. If I click in, which usually it would give me the full, the actual number, it doesn't tell me. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if that's just the way Netflix is going to be from now on, which would be unfortunate, because I like to get a handle on how well or poorly Netflix gauges my interest level.
Okay, we've gone super long. I'm sure the GFQ Network people are probably like, get the fuck off.
This is better than when we would record at 10:30 Eastern, and then
we would wrap in under 20 minutes. We're like, fuck this, I'm sleepy. I need dinner.
It'd be closing in on midnight some nights. Honestly,
that's true.
We went pretty long. Before we go though, I do have a recommendation. Just a recommendation of a documentary I watched today that I thought was really good. If you guys haven't seen it, you should totally check it out. Showrunners, which is on Netflix.
I just added that. It's good.
It's good. It is good. I recommend Showrunner. If you are at all interested in the sausage making section of the TV industry, like what happened,
and penis puppets.
actually, What actually goes into making a TV series run showrunners is really entertaining and informative. It has a lot of well-known producers and showrunners who do interviews, some of whom have been behind extremely successful shows, some of whom have had to deal with, shows getting canceled. And it's a really interesting look from the point where you are where shows are just getting off the ground and being shown in pilot season to what happens when a show gets canned. So I do highly recommend checking it out. It's very well done.
Okay, so next time on Podcast Without Pretense.
Guys, shit got left behind.
Can you believe that Kirk Cameron cameo? That was fucking awesome.
Did I show up for the wrong show again?